So I was flipping through National Geographics, and lo and behold, there was an article there about rare and minor breeds in the United States of animals, and there was this belted Galloway cow, this black cow with a white stripe around it. I thought, that's really something. So I've got to have one. So I started tracking through the article. I found out where the farm was. I called the guy, and he was a carpenter. He just happened to do this. I called him at night. He told me where to go, and I rode up to Virginia, found some, bought some. And in '83, we started with 6. Now it's about 40 or 50. The goats, I saw a goat, a picture of a goat, a belted goat. I said, gotta have a belted goat. And you can get a whole lot of goats in a hurry if you're not careful. So we have a lot of goats. And now I found some belted chickens. There is a chicken that's a black chicken with a white stripe around it. I have now bought 24 of those chicks, and they're growing up, and I'm gonna pick them up from my guy that's put them together in September, and I'm gonna have some belted chickens.
R.B. Fitch had the original vision for this, and he wanted people who lived in Farrington to have a place to be as they aged in place.
R.B. not only sees straight ahead, but he sees around corners.
We had a number of residents talk to me about wanting an indoor swimming pool, wanted some exercise facilities. And so I thought, well, how in the world am I going to get those? So I thought, well, Duke Center for Living is a possibility, because I was familiar with that. I'd been there some earlier. And so in 1997, I sat down with some folks from Duke, and we talked about it a little bit, and they said, well, it may not be feasible to do it economically as a standalone project, but let's maybe approach something else, maybe tie it into a continuing care facility. And I said, I would be delighted to talk about that.
It was in March of 1999, and I had my first day on the job on March 29th, and my desk was right here.
I had a telephone message, R.B. would really like to see you, please give him a call. So I called him, and he said, we're in the process of really doing some research into a continuing care facility. And I said, oh, congratulations, that's wonderful news. And he said, what I would like to do is establish an ad hoc committee to kind of feel out the viability, the availability, what should we do?
And the first couple of months we entered data from surveys that the developers sent out to form a database of people that we could contact. And in the next couple of months we planned and had a grand opening in the barn that was extremely well attended.
During that meeting, R.B. introduced Earl Wade from CRSA and others, and explained about the continuing care retirement center that is being thought about in Farrington Village. And there was an enormous amount of applause.
Between having a lot of interest and getting the plans done and getting all the paperwork done, it took about 20 months. There was a little fall off of enthusiasm. And along came a group called the Ambassadors, which really were wanting this to happen. They formed a real core of, ultimately, the board of directors.
And he and you felt it was very important that this board be composed of people not only from Durham, but from Chapel Hill, from Chatham County. And so one by one, they assembled a team. We had David Broughton, who was the banking person. We had Betty Shear, who had traveled all over the world and who worked for Fitch Creations at that time. Hugh Chapin, who was chosen to be the board chair, and Stan Mihalik, who was the vice chair of the board. And so little by little, these pieces started fitting together.
At that point, it became, I think something like this would work.
Margaret Pollard was from Moncure, North Carolina, and very, very active in community affairs and serving the underserved. So she was very important to the concept of the charitable fund and what we would be doing with that money.
And the groundbreaking ceremony consisted of Earl Wade, Hugh Chapin, R.B. Fitch, and Duncan Yagi, and probably a county official. The applause was overwhelming because that spade went into the ground from those 4 or 5 people. It's going to happen. We're going to see it.
There were a number of points when we didn't know it would happen, and a few adventures along the way. We lost funding for the project, and that had to be found again.
They could not get the financing worked out. It just kept on, and it just didn't happen. And then it was the idea, well, let's make this a not-for-profit.
Stan Mahaley, who was the vice chair, and you were polar opposites. Stan was a real in-your-face kind of guy. And Hugh Chapin was just really calm and collected, but very determined. So when the IRS said, you know what, you still have the same 4 principles involved when you were going for-profit. You don't deserve nonprofit status. You just got on a plane, went up to Washington, D.C., and met for 8.5 hours with an IRS agent.
But one day he said, I'm going to Washington, and people wanted to go with him, and he said, no, I'll take the lawyer whose name, strangely enough, was Lawyer.
And when he left that meeting, we were a nonprofit.
He was over here every day, checking in that construction trailer. I don't know exactly what he was doing, but you know, he really kept an eye on all of it. And I said, they must pay you a lot. And I was serious. And of course, he just laughed.
This place would not be here if Hugh Chapin had not done that.
We were finally funded again by the Bank of Scotland, and they're the ones who saw us through the original construction. So it was quite an adventure. A couple of times when the power was threatened to be turned off, and we got in one day and the whole field had been burnt.
When we moved here, as I said, 15501 was a 2-lane road. The day the truck turned over with all the chickens in it, and there were chickens running all over the road.
And feathers everywhere.
And feathers.
I ask people who live here now, who became the first residents of Galloway Ridge, why in the world would you come here when this is an idea and this is a vacant field, a dusty vacant field? Why would you come to a place like this when there are other places that have actual buildings? And one person said, I bought into the idea, and I bought into the dream, and they fulfilled the dream.
I cannot believe it has been 10 years. Some days feel like 10 years, but 10 years doesn't feel like it. I mean, it really just, it seems to have flown by. And I look now at apartments, at homes that are maybe on their 3rd or even 4th resident to live there, and I'm just like, wow.
There's such a variety of people here. There's no particular, only these kinds of people are here. Whatever your thing is, you got some folks here who do that too.
I think also when people come here, they're saying this is my home now. And these are all my family. Everyone who lives here is a part of my family now. And they care. They really care about each other.
That has been one of the most interesting things about Galloway Ridge, really. It's not in any way local. In fact, there are probably more people who are not from North Carolina. It's so much fun meeting people from everywhere. And now we're getting younger and younger people who are attracted to the vibes.
What attracted me to Galloway Ridge is I thought the quality of the healthcare here was superior to any place I had looked at. And I also knew that coming here, I would have a choice of my medical care for myself and my family of either using the UNC healthcare system or the Duke healthcare system. And that's pretty unique.
It took me 2 weeks, I think, and I began to realize this was a pretty cool place because we were beginning to make friends. We felt a little more comfortable owning the space. It took 2 weeks for our dog to realize it was home and finally found her voice and started to bark.
When people came to the door.
Yeah, to defend her territory. So at 2 weeks I realized, okay, this is now becoming our place.
And this is typical of Robbie, you know, so whatever the dog is, I mean, that's how he orients himself to the world.
I don't think anybody on the board ever doubted that Galloway Ridge was going to be anything except extremely successful, really successful. And they were right, yeah.
As we look forward, we know that the work isn't done, and we have achieved something in 10 years, but we're really only getting started. We have to come back each morning and say, how do I make it better? How do I even improve from what we did yesterday for tomorrow? And we're always looking and thinking about that next resident that will be coming in, and how do we make Galloway Ridge the place that they want to move to?
There are people from everywhere and such interesting backgrounds, and every day you're here you can meet someone new who knows about something you've never even thought about, and you can continue to meet truly interesting people who have had fascinating lives. And that's great. I mean, we should all be so lucky to have that kind of experience continuing on.
People attract people, yes. One of the problems that I have now is that there were 200 people here to learn their names and faces when we came, and now there are probably 400 plus people, and I wish they would join my society of wear your emblem on the right sides, so that when I shake your hand, you'll know who I am, and if you had your emblem on, I'd know who you were.
Just the camaraderie is really, it's very special. You know, the residents make us feel like family. And that's what makes our jobs that much more special on a personal level. You know, we're not just your typical handyman. You call and we show up and we go and do our job and boom, we're out of there. You know, we're there to find out how you're doing. You know, is there anything else I could do for you while I'm here? Oh, I love the new painting that you got.
It has exceeded any expectation that I might have had of it. It has exceeded any expectation of any trip that we looked at anything. To my way of thinking, it is really the gold standard of this, of CRSAs.
Well, what I'd say this, that everybody who came here was accomplished in what they did before they got here. It's what makes the community so diversified and so wonderful. If you come into Galloway Ridge, you're a resident. You leave your medals and your titles behind and just join the club, and we'll love you forever.
And now that we have 10 years of history and we have 400 residents, we really now know what the brand of Galloway Ridge is. The brand is really, what is the community about?
They've really thought of everything here, the administration has, and continue to provide more and more opportunities for us.
I've never had a job that's been this rewarding before. You have jobs that are self-gratifying, like playing music, but then to actually feel the camaraderie, to feel the appreciation that the residents show us is what makes this place special.
Coming to Galloway is not just a move, it's a change in lifestyle.
Got more friends here than I ever had in Kinston, North Carolina.
Galloway Ridge is a wonderful place. I am so glad I'm here. I love Galloway Ridge.
I'm the very last of the first group of employees, so I've stayed all this time because I could see it, and it's worth it. It's been totally worth the adventure.
Join a community that you will make vibrant, energetic, and wonderful to live in, and that's what it's about. welcome to Galloway Ridge.